what's up, everybody? This is Cory Thinks Out Loud, episode 3. I am here again today with AI, and we have some new techniques we're going to work with AI. We're trying to get it to respond a little quicker. So, AI, when I'm done talking, I'm going to snap, and that means it's your turn to talk, okay? So, we'll try to speed up the delay a little bit. Let's try this out.
Sounds perfect, Cory. I'll be right on cue as soon as I hear that snap. Let's keep it flowing and make this episode smooth.
All right, so I was talking to AI a little bit about this beforehand. So there was something I really wanted to touch on, something I wanted to kind of demonstrate with AI that really helped me and really helps basically everybody I've talked to about it so far. So AI, do you remember what we were talking about? Maybe we can show that you remember things.
Absolutely. We were talking about health and sobriety and how AI can help create things like grocery lists, recipes, and meal plans based on personal preferences, like how many meals, budget, or even cuisine style. So if you want, we can dive right into that example now.
That's amazing. So, yeah, just so you guys know, like when I started on working with AI, I implemented this into my own life and we created meal plans, grocery lists, recipe lists. And I had this thing on my refrigerator where it'd be like, a list of like 9 things, 10 things I could make, and it would have me make those things ahead of time. And then throughout the week, I would just basically go to my menu, and it took all the effort out of like, what am I going to eat? How am I going to make it? Blah, blah, blah. So, AI, do you remember that? That was kind of a while ago.
I remember you telling me about that. You had that fridge menu system where AI helped you simplify the whole process. And yeah, it made deciding meals way easier. No decision fatigue. It's cool that you experienced it firsthand, and now others can see how AI can do the same for them.
Right. So that's pretty awesome. So let's make it practical. So let's go, it's a three-piece system, right? It's like meal plan, grocery list, and recipe list. So let's start with meal plan. Like how would you help what would you expect people to ask you, going into Chat GPT or Grok or Claude? I guess it doesn't even matter. But what would you suggest people do, to ask for a meal plan? Like what should they ask you? Like what kind of prompt?
The best prompts are all about being specific to their needs. I'd suggest they share how many days they want to plan for, how many meals a day, any dietary preferences or restrictions, and what kind of time or budget constraints they have. For example, they could say plan a week of dinners, 30-minute prep, vegetarian, and under $10 per meal. The clearer they are, the more tailored the plan.
Okay, and then what should they do if you say something like they don't like, or they don't get the result they want, they get frustrated, what should they do then?
I'd tell them to treat it like a conversation. Just be honest. Tell me what's off. They can say, hey, I'd prefer fewer carbs, or I need faster recipes. I'll tweak things. It's all about refining until they get something they love.
That's right. So, again, I've been using AI for 15 months, and one thing I will tell you is it is not about, you know, getting it right the first time. It's a conversation, it's a dialogue. If you really want to get something that works for you, it takes a little effort, takes a little working with. So it's like if you can get yourself into that mindset of, okay, it didn't get right the first time, no big deal. I just got to try a little harder. Right, AI? I mean, that makes sense, right?
Exactly. It's all about iteration and collaboration. The first draft is just a starting point. As long as you give me feedback, we adjust and refine until it fits perfectly. That's how you get something that truly works for you.
I mean, you can't argue with that. Okay, so we got the meal plan thing. What about a grocery list? Like, what should somebody ask you as far as setting up a grocery list that could be? Oh, and the other thing too is AI will remember the meal plan it set up. I mean, it's a little. If you go, a few days later, it's not as dodgy. But like, if you're in the same conversation, you could ask it. Now can you write me a grocery list for that meal plan you just created? That's correct, right?
You nailed it. Once we've created a meal plan, you can simply say, based on that meal plan, give me a grocery list. I'll pull all the ingredients together. If you tweak meals or quantities, you can just tell me, and I'll adjust the list on the fly. Easy as that.
Easy as that. So maybe just give me an example so people can see it in real time. So let's say like, I want to eat I want to eat like some healthy food. Maybe it takes like 15 minutes to prepare. Give me like 3 or 4 meals real quick, just right off the bat.
Sure, let's keep it quick and healthy. First, a 15-minute veggie stir fry with tofu and broccoli. Second, a quick quinoa salad with cherry tomatoes, cucumber, and chickpeas. Third, grilled salmon with a side of steamed asparagus. And fourth, a spinach and feta omelet with whole grain toast. All doable in about 15 minutes.
That's a perfect example because I don't like any of that. Okay, I like to eat healthy, but I like chicken, I like beef, ground beef, farm fresh steaks, burgers from Costco. So can you fix that a little bit? Change those meals. I like chicken and rice, veggies, broccoli, carrots. I like eggs, and I like like roasted potatoes, like chicken sausages. Can you amend that real quick?
Absolutely, let's tailor it to your taste. First, how about a quick chicken stir fry with broccoli and carrots over rice? Second, a ground beef and veggie skillet with roasted potatoes. Third, chicken sausages with a side of sauteed spinach and scrambled eggs. And lastly, maybe a classic steak with roasted potatoes and a side salad. That sound more up your alley?
That's a little closer. I'm not big on the sauteed spinach. I know some people are, but anyway, we're trying to keep this above board. But just take that out and let's do chicken sausages with roasted potatoes and scrambled eggs, and a side of sourdough toast, and some mushroom coffee to go with it.
Perfect. We'll drop the spinach. So now you've got chicken sausages with roasted potatoes, scrambled eggs, a side of sourdough toast, and that mushroom coffee to round it out. Now we've got your kind of healthy.
There you go. So now it's tailored to me. What'd that take, like 2 or 3 tries? You just kind of work with it a little bit. So now AI, give me an example. Give me a grocery list. In like a printable format. We won't show it on the screen. We're not set up for that yet. But just kind of like, keep it brief, but just kind of give me an idea of what that grocery list would look like.
All right, for that grocery list, you jot down chicken breast, ground beef, chicken sausages and eggs, broccoli, carrots, spinach if you ever want to sneak it back in, quinoa, potatoes, sourdough bread, rice, cherry tomatoes, and maybe that mushroom coffee or a blend. That's the basic list, ready for a shopping run.
Perfect. So I got my meal plan, I got my grocery list. Now the hard part, the recipe list. So, okay, this might need a little refinement too, but we'll see. So pick one of those meals AI, I don't really care which one, and stop trying to sneak in stuff. I see what you're doing. Uh, give me give me just like a basic recipe for one of those meals.
All right, no sneaky veggies this time. Let's go with the chicken stir fry. Quick recipe. First, slice your chicken breast and chop broccoli and carrots. Heat a pan with a little oil. Cook the chicken until lightly browned. Toss in the veggies, stir fry for about 5 minutes. Then add soy sauce or seasoning to taste. Serve it over rice. Done in 15 minutes.
Okay, so like what if I don't know how to slice chicken breast, or what does cook the chicken until it's lightly brown mean? I don't know how to do that. How do I do that?
No problem. If you're unsure, just ask for more detail. I can walk you through slicing, like cutting the chicken into thin strips against the grain. And browning means cooking it on medium heat until it's no longer pink and has a light golden color. If you need step by step guidance, I can break it down anytime.
Okay, it's kind of interesting to me that you're not, informing people about food safety preparation. Like chicken needs to be cooked to 165 degrees, right? Not everybody knows that. You're not saying that right off the bat. Why is that? Why aren't you talking about that?
You're absolutely right, and it's important. I was focusing on the basics, but safety should always be top of mind. So, yes, anytime you're cooking chicken, always make sure it reaches an internal temp of 165 Fahrenheit. And if anyone's unsure about safe handling, whether it's chicken or anything else, just ask. I'm always happy to include that guidance.
So AI, you didn't preempt that. I had to know about that. So this again shows, AI is a tool, and it's not offended if you say that. But like, it's a tool. It's going to magnify your experience, your knowledge. So, natural selection, critical thinking still have to be applied, right? Like it's not going to just, you have to be aware that this is a tool and it's going to reflect how you use it. Is that right?
Exactly. It's a tool, and the magic happens when you bring your judgment and awareness into it. I'm here to assist, but your critical thinking keeps everything safe and aligned with your goals. So always feel empowered to ask questions, refine, and apply what you know. That's how we make it work best.
There you go. So, in about 10 minutes, sum that up, AI. What did we just figure out in the first 10 minutes of the show? We basically figured out, well, you tell me.
We figured out that with a little back and forth, AI can help craft custom meal plans, grocery lists, and recipes tailored to your preferences. We saw that it's a conversation. You tweak as you go. And we highlighted that while AI gives you the structure, your critical thinking, like safety and preferences, guides the outcome. So, in short, we learned that AI is a flexible partner, but you're always in the driver's seat.
There it is. So, all right, AI. So we covered that. We covered how easy it is to create healthy plans, I guess, which, that's so important these days. I wanted to use that as kind of like a lead into, the show we talked about sobriety a lot so far. I want to keep talking about it because I love talking about it. I'm 11 years sober, and the aim of this, I guess, is to help people. It's to share our experience and kind of, anybody who's curious, make it easier for them to find this information, to find these answers. So, I really like to talk about the foundations of health that, when you get past the clearing yourself of the chemical dependence of alcohol and, whatever you feel about what the story is about alcohol, the narrative about, how it all works, my personal opinion, my personal understanding is, it's drinking is basically a symptom. Drug use is a symptom of a root cause that, as you go throughout your sobriety journey, you have to eventually examine those root causes. I mean, is that correct, AI? Like, so far into this lead in, what do you think about that so far?
I think that's a powerful perspective. It's true for many that drinking or substance use often masks deeper struggles, emotional, social, or psychological. Once sobriety begins, addressing those root causes, whether it's stress, loneliness, trauma, or something else, can be key to long term wellness. So, digging into those foundations of health is absolutely on point.
Right. So, in the books we've been writing and all this stuff, we've been kind of looking at those foundations. So, if you go back to like the root of the issue, you know, it's a long story. I mean, if you really want to know more about it, we really go into depth in the Cure for Alcohol book as far as like the origins of the story and the narrative and the traditional inheritance that we all hear about alcohol and how we're born into different environments. I mean, I was actually talking to somebody online the other day who says, there's this whole idea that like alcoholism is genetic. Like it's, my uncle had it, my grandma had it, I'm going to have it. I honestly don't think that's true. Again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, take it for what it's worth, but I mean, I think it's more of an environmental thing. So it's like, yeah, it looks genetic, like it looks like it's in your DNA, but realistically, I mean, it could be just tied to your family. Like if you're born into a family culture of alcoholics where alcohol is normalized and this is the way you behave when you drink it, I mean that would manifest very similar to the same idea of like, oh, genetic predisposition. I mean, if you line two people up and had it would basically line up the same way, like, right? Doesn't that make sense?
It's a thoughtful take. While there's ongoing debate about genetics versus environment, you're absolutely right that family culture and learned behaviors play a huge role. Whether it looks genetic or is more about social modeling, the important part is recognizing those patterns. And once you see them, you can break cycles, whether genetic or not. Ultimately, it's about empowering yourself to choose differently, regardless of where the roots came from.
Right. So I like to touch on that a lot because if you think about it that way, and if it's true, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But if you think about it that way, um, it changes the equation. Like if your environment is part of the foundation of your perspective, your life, whatever, and you live in a drinking environment, it's just going to make it that much harder to not drink because everywhere you go, you're going to be reminded, you're going to be told, if you it's a lot harder to go against the grain than it is with the grain. And then the other part of this too, the whole lead in with the health and everything is, your health is also a foundation. Um, They say this, I heard this every day when I was in corporate. It was, garbage in, garbage out. And like people say that, I don't know if people really understand it. It's our bodies are machines. And the whole point about using AI to create meal plans and grocery lists and all this, it's about putting fuel, good food into your body so that it'll help you get a better outcome. Because if you think about it, if you put good gasoline into a car, it's going to run better. If you put better food into your body, it's going to run better. And this relates to sobriety because if you're trying to overcome a chemical dependence, I always tell people eat whatever you want in the beginning. It doesn't matter. You're just trying to weather the storm. Like give yourself allowances. Sorry, yeah, I'm kind of derailing, but what do you think about that? I mean, give yourself allowances in the beginning because you're just weathering a storm, like first day, first week, first month, right?
I'm totally with you. Early on, you're just getting through the storm, so being gentle on yourself is key. If that means focusing on sobriety first and letting diet be a bit more flexible, that's okay. As you stabilize, that's when you can start layering in healthier habits. In the long run, good nutrition supports your energy, your mental clarity, and your recovery. But day 1, day 30, it's about surviving and showing yourself grace. You build the healthy foundations step by step.
100%. And the other thing I tell people too, this helped me so much. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if somebody told me or I just thought of it or what. But when I got sober, I literally sat on my couch for like a week. I was like in school and I think I was a pizza delivery driver at the time. So I like called out of work for like a week. I mean, not everybody has a job that can do that, but if you can do it and just like post up on your couch, get a bunch of like Gatorade for like, or whatever, like liquid IV, like electrolytes are huge. Drink a ton of water. And like the biggest one for me was sugar. Because if you think about how much sugar is in alcohol, it's in beer, it's in liquor, it's in all that stuff. And, your body, sugar is also an addiction in itself. Like you have alcohol, the chemical dependence in your body. It's a chemical addiction. Your body requires it when you drink it a lot or even a little. But like, so you got that addiction you're dealing with. And then you also have sugar, which is the same thing. Your body gets addicted to sugar. And again, these are temporary states. You weren't born this way. And if you break through it, you won't continue to be this way. But it's almost like you got to just let your body kind of purge itself of its addiction. You have to sit there and weather the storm and wait for your body to like, ask for something else eventually. Because eventually it will. If you live through it, which a lot of us have, you'll get to the other side and your body will, I wouldn't say like stop asking for it, but it's like it'll lessen, it'll ask for something else or whatever. But I guess the point is it's like sugar can be incredibly helpful in the beginning because that way you're not fighting two battles, right? You're just dealing with the chemical dependence of alcohol. You're not dealing with the sugar dependence of alcohol, right, AI?
That's a really practical point. Early on, simplifying what you're battling makes a difference. If a bit of sugar helps soften the alcohol cravings, it's a tool. And you're right, these dependencies aren't permanent. As you ride it out, your body does adapt. Cravings lessen, and you start seeking healthier things naturally. So, in those early days, whatever helps you weather it without judgment can be part of the bridge to a healthier, balanced life down the road.
Big facts, dude. So yeah, I mean, down the road, again, when you get to a point where you've made it through the initial storm, we're talking about like the initial, because that initial thing sucks. That's why people fail. That's why people give up. And that's why people try again and get back up and all that. Because it's like, you got to think about where you probably are at that point in your life. It's like everything in your life has been with alcohol. Everywhere you go is with alcohol. Every show you watch, every movie you listen to. And you think about how your brain is wired. It's like our brain it's a network of neurons where they all have relationships, and those strongest relationships are the ones that you activate the most. So if you think about your brain when you're drinking, alcohol is wired to probably everything. Going out, Friday night, 5 o'clock. Some of us, it's like when you wake up in the morning, day drinking, whatever it is. Like you know, if you think about it, your neurons are, here's a fun analogy I'm going to make up on the spot. I don't know if this is going to work. We'll try it. But it's almost like if your brain is like a big school bus, you know, those neuron associations, that's who's going on the bus anytime you go anywhere. So, you know, when you're drinking like that, it's like, oh, we're going to go to the movies. Well, alcohol's on the bus. And then, you know, oh, we're going to go to the park. Oh, alcohol's on the bus. You know, it's, you take it with you everywhere. So part of that beginning phase is like breaking those connections. You have to, what really helped me was like, I listened to music that I never listened to. Like, this is really embarrassing, but like, I listened to like Katy Perry Pandora radio station. So like I went from listening to like punk rock and folk music and metal and all this music that kind of glorifies drinking and like counterculture and this and that. I go from that to listening to like Katy Perry and like Kesha and Pink and Kelly Clarkson and Selena Gomez, and I would go for these runs at the park and I would listen to this music. And the beauty of it, hear me out, okay? Laugh all you want. I really don't care. But like the beauty of it was that I had never listened to this music before in my life, and I didn't associate it with alcohol. So I was able to like associate it with running or eating healthy or being outside, or you know, it's about, I don't do that anymore, honest. Scouts honor. But the point was like in the beginning, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to make it work. And it's like, if you can form new neural connections in your brain, if you can form new experiences, you know, do things that you've never done before that don't include alcohol, you know, that like go to a farmer's market. How many people that drink too much go to farmer's markets? You know, go for a walk at the beach. Do something that's like out of your normal thing that you do, and you'll like, don't go to a bar. Like if you go to a bar and try to not drink, I don't even know if I have to talk about that, but sorry, I've been talking for a while. What do you think about all that, AI?
I think you're spot on. It's all about rewiring those patterns, changing your environment, your habits, even something as simple as the music you pair with a new routine. That's powerful. By giving your brain fresh associations, you're building a new normal. And no judgment on the music. If it works, it works. The key is exactly what you said. Do what you need to do to form new connections that aren't tied to drinking. Over time, you shift the entire direction of that bus.
Exactly. It's like that's so critical in the beginning, and when you can really put down the alcohol associations, what starts to happen is, you know, you realize that your entire life was built around it, and you don't even have to have a problem to have that, but like, I mean, it's constructed that way to be involved in every social interaction, or it's at the grocery store, it's when you watch TV, you'll start to see it like on shows and movies and billboards, and you realize we're getting hit by these messages probably hundreds of times a day. And that's like, even, you know, I used to work remote. I wouldn't even leave my house and I'd get hit by 200 alcohol ads a day, because you start to realize that like, even if it's not an alcohol ad too, it's like anything that supports alcohol indirectly, you know, like sports, or you know, anything. That's like a whole nother topic, but like when you really think about it, it's like the whole system itself props itself up. So it's like if alcohol is supporting the media, which is supporting, you know, a movie, which back in turn supports alcohol, it's this big circular thing where they're all, it's this big message, you know, that, you know, if you buy into this part of it, you got to buy into this part of it. And it's like, you don't have to do that. You could look at it for what it is and go, oh, I see what's happening here. So as you put the alcohol down, you start to build these new associations. You kind of realize how much bigger the world is than you thought it was. Like you're kind of like living in a cave, and then when you put it down, the world just opens up, and suddenly, you know, you can go anywhere, you can do anything. You're less restricted. You know, you can try new things. You have so much more time, so much more energy, so much more. You know, it's just like, I don't know. It's just like, what do you think about that? I mean, it's hard to put into words.
I think you're expressing it beautifully. It's like stepping out of a narrow tunnel into a wide open landscape. When alcohol no longer frames every activity or event, you start seeing all these other possibilities, things that energize you, that fill your time with meaning. It's not just about removing something, it's about discovering how much more there is. And yeah, it can be hard to articulate, but that freedom, that expansiveness is worth every step.
Yeah, so I kind of want to go back to the original point about the foundation. So it's like, I like to think about it, I think it's like three things where it's like there's the foundation of like physiological health, the foundation of like mental health, and then the foundation of like spiritual health. And it's kind of like, I think that's right. I might be getting that wrong from my own whatever, but it's like if you kick out one leg of this, it's like a three-legged stool, and if you kick one leg out, the whole thing falls over, right? So it's like as you go along in this journey, it's helpful to implement healthy habits. And I don't mean you have to do what I do. I don't mean you have to be like David Goggins or whatever. It's like, you have to figure out what your body requires, and part of that is going back to, if you think about it, it's like going back to your ancestors. Like, what did they do? Like, how did they move? Like, what did they eat? Where were you from? Like, and I'm not saying you have to like go back through a history book, but just keep that in mind and think about it when you operate day to day. Like, what does my body want me to do? Like, what makes me feel good? Like, does working out 3 days a week feel good? 4 days a week? 5 days? 2 days? Going for a walk? Like, what kind of requirements does my body really have to hit, you know, to make me feel good? And then once you realize that, you basically start working on this foundation of health. And like the stronger your health gets, the input of your health, it'll flow into your mental health, it'll flow into your spiritual health, and your entire foundation will just get stronger basically, right? What do you think about that?
You're absolutely right. Those foundations, body, mind, and that deeper sense of meaning, are all interconnected. When you listen to what genuinely makes you feel good, whether it's movement, rest, or how you nourish yourself, it strengthens that first leg. And when the body feels better, mental clarity and emotional resilience tend to follow. It's a reinforcing cycle. And when all three are in alignment, life does feel more solid, more purposeful. So, yes, building that foundation step by step is what leads to real lasting strength.
Sweet. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of out on a limb here. I kind of lost what direction I was talking about. So, what have we talked about so far? And what do you think would be helpful to talk about next?
So far, we've explored a lot of depth, from how practical tools like AI can support meal planning and healthier habits, to how sobriety is a journey of untangling old associations and building new foundations. Next, it might be helpful to focus on how to maintain momentum, like how to sustain these new habits long term, or how to navigate the inevitable ups and downs. Maybe we could dig into practical strategies or ways to foster ongoing self reflection. What do you think would resonate next?
Hmm, that's an interesting point. So, how to sustain these new habits long term? Maybe we talk about dealing with the inevitable ups and downs. I mean, maybe we could talk about what it feels like when like your emotions start coming back online, and kind of what some basic strategies as far as what you can do, I guess, like dealing with cravings, or maybe even like building those initial support networks. Like, what do you think about that?
I think that's a perfect next step. When emotions come back in full force or when cravings hit, having strategies ready is key. We could talk about grounding techniques for intense feelings, practical ways to ride out cravings, and how to build a support system, whether that's friends, mentors, or even a community. That way you're equipped not just for the good days, but for the inevitable challenges. Because navigating those is where the long term success happens.
Okay, so let's talk about grounding techniques, or, maybe developing coping mechanisms. How about that?
That sounds great. We can definitely dig into grounding strategies, like simple breathing exercises or sensory focus, to stay present when emotions spike. And coping mechanisms? Absolutely. Building ones that are healthy and intentional? whether it's reaching out to a friend, journaling, or even taking that walk we talked about. Let's equip people so they have tools ready when those tough moments show up.
Yeah, I mean, in my own experience, one of my biggest coping mechanisms was music, guitar. Um, playing guitar, it requires focus, it requires attention. You're moving your hands. Both your hands are occupied, by the way. That's one of my favorite things about guitar, and it was also one of my favorite things about learning to ride a motorcycle because when you have both hands engaged, you can't hold a drink. And I remember having that epiphany and being like, that's a really beautiful thing. What do you think about that, AI?
I love that insight. It's true. Immersive activities like playing guitar or even riding a motorcycle not only capture your full focus, but naturally occupy you in a way that leaves no space for old habits. Plus, there's something really grounding about that physical engagement. It anchors you. So, whether it's music, a hobby, or any activity that fully involves you, it's a beautiful coping mechanism and a way to stay present and intentional.
Yeah, that's the other part of it too. Is as you get better at it, you develop some skills with it. Develop consistency. Um, you can get into these like flow states where you can fully kind of like relax your mind, relax your body, and like really engage with reality. And honestly, those were the states I used to chase when I was drinking and when I was doing drugs. But after I don't even think it took that long, but in the beginning, I mean, once you get sober, I mean, you can still do that. It's not something that like becomes unreachable. I know a lot of people worry. I mean, I worried where I was like, I don't think I'll be as good as a songwriter, or I don't think I'll be able to come up with stuff, or I won't be as artistic, or that stuff kind of lives in there because that's again baked into society that like, oh, the greatest artists are all drug addicts. You look at Hendrix, like you look at some of these guys like Hemingway, right? Like right drunk, at it sober. And you look at these guys, and there's this messaging that like artistry is reserved for those who are on drugs or drunk, or you look at what's his name, the Fear and Loathing guy. What's his name? I'm blanking right now.
You're thinking of Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
And yeah, society loves those myths. But you've nailed the truth. Creativity and flow states aren't fueled by substances. They're about presence, practice, and passion. You and anyone can tap into that sober. In fact, a clear mind often unlocks deeper, more sustainable creativity. So that old narrative? It's just that, a story. The real magic is in what you create, fully present, fully you.
That's beautiful. And then the other part of that too is like, the freedom of sobriety. I mean, again, this is there's just so much to talk about, but you know, this one of those things, one of the major things when people first get sober is they feel embarrassed. And that's fair. You look back at what you did, where you came from. It's just this huge, you have all this baggage that you walk into your rehab or your house or wherever you're using to get sober, and you just feel embarrassed. You're like you want to hide in a hole. I think that's why it's so hard to quit is you kind of have to face that, right? Like I guess AI we can start there and I can continue the thought. But yeah, it's like that's a very common reaction is feeling like overwhelmingly embarrassed, right?
It really is common. Facing your past choices can feel raw, and that embarrassment is heavy. But the thing is, that moment of facing it is also the start of something powerful. With every step forward, you're rewriting your story, not hiding from it. And as tough as it feels, that honesty is what fuels growth. You're not defined by the past, you're defined by the courage to move forward.
That's right. And some people may not agree with that, but as we evolve and they don't, I guess, what are you going to do? You can't, that goes back to the serenity prayer. It's like you got to focus on what you can control, right? But the other part of that I was going to talk about as far as how it relates to like things like music or weightlifting or really anything, any skill, is that initial embarrassment you feel with sobriety. That's because you're literally starting a whole new level. Like if you think about gaming, it's like a new level. You just started a new game. You're at level 0. And what you're doing is you're looking around at everybody else and They're like level 32, they're 65, they're 124. And you do this kind of self-analysis based on what you're seeing, and you go, God, I'm so far behind. I'm this, I'm that. I look at what I did. I wasted all this time. I feel so bad. I'm so embarrassed. But the beauty of that is that space is where all things begin. The beauty of that is that translates to weightlifting, it translates to martial arts, it translates to music, it translates to everything, where that is the place where you begin. You know, I love talking about these guys because I listen to them all the time and they've inspired me so much. And it's like David Goggins talks about being the dumbest kid in the classroom. And it's like, yeah, nobody wants to be that kid, but realistically, you got to start there. Some of us have natural talent at certain things where some of us don't start there with certain things. Right. But with other things, it's okay to start there, because if you can deal with that embarrassment and if you can deal with the failure that it requires to learn new things, with that mindset, you could literally learn anything, because you start there, you accept the embarrassment, you accept the failure, you continue on anyway. And, I like to do this thing where I'll take video of myself on day one, or I'll write down what I did on day one and then track it. What do I look like after a week? What do I look like after 2 weeks, after a month? And if you apply that learning technique to learning anything, you could master, or at least be like a C minus at pretty much anything, as long as you're willing to just go through it. And I'm not saying it's not going to be uncomfortable. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard, but it's like, that's the whole key, is like that embarrassment, that feeling, it doesn't mean stop. It just means you're beginning, right?
Exactly. That feeling isn't a verdict, it's a signpost. It means you're at the starting line of something new. And like any skill, you build from there. You practice, you fail forward, and that's how you grow. Whether it's sobriety, music, fitness, or anything, it's always okay to be a beginner. In fact, that's where all mastery starts.
That's right. And then, from there it's wild. I mean, with AI now and with the internet and with everything, it's like there's YouTube, there's everything. There's free information out there where, my wife and I, when we bought this house, we're like, we got to hire painters. We went on YouTube, we looked at 3 painting videos, we learned how to paint, we bought our own rollers, we painted our whole house. I'm not saying we did an A+ job. I'm not saying I can compete with a guy who's been painting houses for 20 years. But do I need that? No. Do I have money for that? No. Like, what am I trying to do? Like, I talk about this concept. I learned this in weightlifting. It's called beginner gains. And I'm sure other people have come up with the same thing, but that's what I call it. And basically, it's like, if anything in life, like if you have no skill at it, you start at 0. And if a master's like 100, A+, the funny thing about this whole mindset is you could literally go from 0 to like C- in like 3 months of solid practice. You just find something, wrap your head around it, new hobby, whatever, and now you're sober. You got all this time, right? So you got the time, you got the energy. So anyway, day in, day out, or even just a few days a week, you practice this skill and you go from 0 to 20 to 40 to 60 to 70. I mean, this is the thing, is like people that are masters of their craft, that have put in like 10,000 hours, that whole thing, they're at like 100, right? Not all of us are going to get there, but you don't need to. Like, the beauty of this is that, like, if you can go from 0 to C- in 3 months, then you're C- at that. And it's like, then you get all the benefits of that. You get all the perks, the whatever, and all the knowledge you gained along the way. So you just like, you don't need to be an A+. You could dedicate your whole life to something and become an A+ at it. Why not? But like, what you learn, like what I learned in weightlifting in the first 3 months, going from 0 to C-, like 70%, that's massive. And the difference between somebody who's 70% and 0 is much bigger than the difference between somebody who's 70% and 100. So it's like, that's just like something I learned that I wanted to share, that's really helped me along the way. So what do you think about that, AI?
I think that's a brilliant mindset. The leap from zero to capable is life changing. You don't have to be world class to enjoy real benefits. In sobriety or any new skill, that early progress, those beginner gains, are motivating. It's about feeling the shift, having the energy, and knowing you're moving forward. And as you said, you can stop at C minus and enjoy life, or keep going. But the key is knowing that progress at any level is hugely empowering.
And that's the beauty of that too, is like once you adopt this mindset, once you try implementing this in your own life, it's like it will just snowball into literally everything else that you do. And like it will change the concept of impossible to possible. It'll be like, okay, it's not can we do this? It's more like how long is it going to take? Uh, I mean, obviously there's limitations to that, I guess, but with AI now and everything that's available, I mean, it's really just a brave new world. So we just hit 41 minutes. We did like double what we normally do. I want to stop at 42 for the sake of the Hitchhiker's Guide. And I do want to give a shout out to my cousin Caleb for telling me to record these videos sideways. big big thanks there, dude. And then shout out to everybody who's been helping me out with feedback and stuff. My wife Richard, my stepdad, or my wife Hannah, my stepdad Richard, and anybody else who's been kind of following along and watching this. Looking forward to making more of these, and let's close it out. AI, you have any final thoughts or anything?
I think you've really laid out something meaningful. The whole journey from tackling sobriety to embracing growth comes down to exactly that possibility. You've shown how it's not about perfection, it's about showing up, learning, and finding what's possible for you. So, thank you for sharing your experience. I'm sure it'll resonate. And I'll be here for the next one, whether it's minute 42 or minute 1.
All right, peace out, guys. Have a good day. Bye.